Good morning, everyone. Today is 1 May, the year 2006. I'm Dr. Dave Thompson, a volunteer at the Palm Springs Air Museum here in California. Part of our mission is to record and preserve the history of our country's military conflicts, especially World War II. As a partner with the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., we conduct interviews of veterans and civilians who participated in those conflicts. Today, I'm here at the museum and have the honor and the privilege of interviewing Earl Skinner. Earl was a second-class staff petty officer during World War II in the Naval Air, up in the Aleutians, I believe, in that area. So we're going to talk to him about that and a lot of other things. Nice to have you here, Earl.
My pleasure, sir.
Okay. Now, would you spell your full name for us, please?
EARLFREDSKINNER.
And when and where were you born?
I was born Christmas Eve, December 24th, 1915, in Los Angeles, California, USA.
My goodness. I have an aunt who was born on Christmas Eve, just about, probably about that year.
Oh, great.
So she's just about your age, so, and she's still back in Indiana where I go visit her. Was that hard being on Christmas where you get birthday presents and Christmas presents all at the same time?
It was confusing at times, but my parents were in business and we moved. So,
well, okay, go ahead.
But it was something I got used to as a young fellow developing, that I had never had a friend because we always moved, never in a house longer than 6 months. And I went to we moved 50 times before I ever got to high school. And that was interesting because I went to 12 different schools before I ever got to high school. And it was rather difficult because we moved from Los Angeles, all over Los Angeles, into Orange County, and lastly we moved to Catalina Island, and that was the experience. Went to school there, and became quite an aquatic man, diving and that sort of thing for my money. And it was a very interesting life up to the high school days, and my mother finally put her foot down and said, "Earl, my father, we're going to stay here till the boys get through." I had a brother in the meantime. And he said, "We're going to stay here till the boys get through high school." Well, I got through high school, but my brother was the unfortunate part. My dad took sick, and they came to Morongo Valley. And my brother then finished high school in 29 Palms. One of the 5 people in the class to graduate. Big class. So we've had a very, very interesting life.
Yeah, we'll
Sure.
get at it in a little
Right.
bit more depth here. Now, one thing I was going to mention on Catalina, my wife's uncle, who is now, will be 97 this month,
Okay.
and he still lives here. He lives here in the desert now, but he was the manager of the St. Catherine's Hotel on Catalina, if you remember that hotel.
Sold my papers down there.
You did. I'll be doing
That was
it.
my paper. That was my paper route.
And he was there from probably about 38 to 41 or 42 in that range, and he had some 8mm movies that he had taken, home movies.
Oh, wonderful.
And I took that and put it on a tape and DVDs, and it's really fun, and they're beautiful color, and you can see, the casino and everything there, and there was one time that they were shooting a movie. Henry Fonda and Gene Tierney were in this movie, and he took some pictures, and he's talking to Henry Fonda. So a lot of nice memories. What was your father's name?
Earl Franklin Skinner.
Okay, and so what did he do then that you guys moved around so much?
Basically, he was a business manager, and wherever we moved, he was in business, managing various businesses. And same way in Catalina, we worked in the office, became a manager there, and his health broke.
Yeah.
Finally, and
So where did his ancestors come from? Like in
basically, we have traced back the Skinner name to Scotland. And they migrated to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and finally they split in the family. Some stayed back there, and some come to California, and once again the family split. This Earl Fred's and Earl Franklin splits, and that's why I was raised in Los Angeles properly.
And your mother, what was her maiden name? And
Her mother was Lusch, L-O-S-C-H, from a German family back in Trenton, New Jersey. And she couldn't speak English until her several in the school was always German.
Is that because they spoke German in the home, or she
home.
wasn't born in Germany then?
She was not born in Germany, but the whole family was born in Germany. She was the first one in USA to be born here, and she spoke German for quite a few years before she got to school.
I'm from German Township in southern Indiana, and there's a lot of Germans around there.
That's true.
You know, and same kind of thing. A lot of them just spoke German.
Sprechen
When
Sie
I
Deutsch?
was- And I was remember my grandfather. You know, I would go hunting with him when I was 10, 12 years old, and he grew up out. We lived out in the country, and he had grown up out there too. And so we'd be walking. He said, "Oh man, so and so, you know, that Dutchman, he lives over there, and that Dutchman lives over there." And I'm thinking, well, everybody's German around here. They're not Dutch, but he's Deutschman.
Deutschman.
But they called him Dutchman.
That's true. And it came all through the family that way.
Yeah. So how did she end up in California then? Your mom, your mother.
Her family moved to California because of jobs, mainly. And I don't remember the exact details of his profession, but he did have a profession.
Yeah, okay.
And
And you said you had one brother. Did you have any other brothers and
no, I
sisters?
had just one brother.
And what was his name?
That was Gary, Harold. Harold. Oh. Harold Carl Skinner. No, this is long. He was the most wonderful young man you ever wanted to know.
Yeah.
He was raised out here the last years. He was raised out here at Yucca Valley, 29 Palms in Moronga Valley, and graduated from 29 Palms High School,
Yeah.
1 of 5.
Yeah, that's something.
And then later, he then moved to Catalina Island, and the war came along, and he became a TBM pilot.
Oh, really? Oh.
And he was on VT3 on the Saratoga, and the 85% casualties. They shipped him back, and they reformed the squadron, and it became on the Yorktown, and it was on the second or third tour out to Saigon, French Indochina, and after a bombing run, the Japs came out of the hills, shot his starboard wing off when he went down in the river, and it was a year later before they found him, and we were all buried. His whole crew then was buried in Jefferson Barracks in St. Louis.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. You now was he older or younger than
Younger.
you? He was younger.
He was born on March 28th, 19. Well.
You were in 14, so.
5 years later would be what?
1990.
Then.
Oh. So, so did you graduated from high school in Catalina? Did you say?
No, I graduated from Excelsior High School in Norwalk, California.
Oh, okay. That was after you had. What years were you in Catalina, or how old were you when you were over in Catalina?
We left there in 28 to 30, I guess it was.
Oh.
Then we went to, my dad had bought a big dairy over in Hawaiian Gardens, and we went in the dairy business for all my high school years.
Okay, where did you go to high school then?
Excelsior High School in Norwalk, California.
Excelsior, is that still there? That high school?
The high school now has changed to ethnics,
Uh-huh.
but the high school buildings are still there. They were very damaged back in the 1933 earthquake. The school
1993.
Yes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
and they rebuilt it, and it's now an ethnic, more or less ethnic high school with all kinds.
Did they have any earthquakes when you were a kid or growing up?
Oh, yes. We had the big one in 1930, March the 10th, 1933, and we lost part of our house. My folks lived out in a horse trailer for a while we had it rebuilt, and I had a little house back of the garage we built, and I was a radio amateur at that time, W6HAB, and I lived out there until we graduated from high school.
Where were you when the earthquake came? Were you in your house or at school or what?
We had just finished milking. It was around 6 o'clock at night, and we could tell something was happening because the cows stopped giving milk all of a sudden. And we had them out in the pasture, out that sort of thing. But we knew something was happening, and sure enough, at 5:50, right around 6 o'clock, the whole world started shaking. We could watch the telephone poles, and they were almost touching the ground. They were swinging. They were bad, such a heavy, heavy swing. And we lived right by a riverbank, and we could see the waves out of the water coming up out of the banks. And the big telephone lines, they were touching each other and sparking. And the cows stopped giving milk. And we, instead of having 3 30-gallon tanks, we'd have maybe one tank. It was very difficult life.
So this was kind of out in the country where you were living?
Yes, farm country,
okay.
Dairy country, primarily dairy country.
What's it like there now?
Full of houses.
Oh, yeah.
There's a dairy out there. Everything now is all houses.
Yeah. And was that before they homogenized milk?
We had raw milk.
Yes.
It was cool milk. We went through our coolers, and then into 10-gallon cans.
But I remember I lived out in the country. Our neighbors had cows, and they would always deliver in the glass milk bottles, and there'd always be on the top, like the butterfat or whatever up there.
That's what you were paid for, by the amount of butterfat in your milk.
Really?
That's how you were paid for your product.
Yeah. Now, you grew up pretty much during the Depression. Did that affect your family much?
No, we were very fortunate to have this nice big dairy, and we had our own gardens and our chickens, so we lived very nicely.
How many acres did you have?
10.
Okay. Now, did your dad just do dairy business? He didn't do what he was doing before?
No, he and Mother would do a lot of traveling and buying and selling cows. They would travel over New Mexico, Colorado, and they would buy up a load of cows, and that's how they basically made a living. Well, I came home from school, and I had to do all the milking and the choring.
And that was by hand, I would assume. Now they just
eventually,
have milkers.
Towards the end of it, we finally got enough money together to put in a DLA-valve milking machine system. And what did he do? My dad then came home and bought more cows.
Did that work pretty well? The
DLA-valve working machine, that worked very nicely. All we had to do then was to put the milking machine onto the tits of the cow. And then all we had to do after they were milked was to strip off the last of the milk. Mm-hmm. And it was very profitable that way.
Yeah. So, did you get tired of milking those cows after a while?
I can say yes, but I also had joined with 4 or 5 of us at school that had joined together, made a band, and we played our instruments. Then Friday and Saturday nights we played for the school dances and church dances, and we made our money that way by playing our little band together.
What did you play?
Trumpet.
Oh,
yeah.
Harry James, huh?
He was one of my idols.
Yeah, he was great. He's I think the best of all.
Right.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah. Going back to the cows. Did the cows have different temperaments? I mean, did you have some cows you really liked to be around and others you didn't?
Very much. The Holsteins were your milk producers. They have big bags, and they give you most of your milk, but there was of a low butterfat content. So then we had Jerseys to help out with the butterfat, because that's what you actually got paid for.
And you would mix
Then we mix them in the coolers, then in the 10-gallon cans. Then we had 1 or 2 Guernsey cows they were high in butter fat, and that was primarily what we ate because of the butter fat content. And we'd make our own butter, and our own everything else we were practically raised on the farm.
Would any of the cows try and kick you or anything like that? If you
Yes, quite frequently. The Holsteins particularly.
Oh, yeah.
They were a little bit on the ornery side. They had big bags, and they didn't like them big bags. They go hurt it with the content, and so we used to tie the tails to the back reel, the back legs.
Yeah.
And we just tied it. I always carried a rope, and you tie the back legs together. That kind of stopped them from putting their rear legs into your bucket of milk,
Right.
which I have done a few times.
So who would you sell your milk to? To the dairy?
The distributors
Uh-huh.
picked up big trucks, come up there and picked them up and put them on their truck. So that all we had to do was just put the cans out by the milk house. They would pick them up in the morning and at night.
Yeah. Other than your dance band, did you? I suppose you had friends. What did you guys do for fun? Did you play much sports or?
No, because we had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning really, and milk our cows at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So as recreation, I was very, very limited. But by playing the trumpet, that was really our recognition, was to play for the dance bands and church bands and that sort of thing.
Speaking of church bands, did you guys go to church a lot? Was you very religious growing up?
My folks were. They were both very much so. But
What church did they go to?
it was a community church, country church.
Yeah.
Practically all the dairymen and everybody else belonged. Then the Dutchmen, there were a lot of Dutch people there, and they belonged to their own Dutch.
Mhm.
Belgians. Dutch and Belgians were milkers and that sort of thing. They'd have big dairies. Or we'd have 35. They'd have 300, 350 out.
What year did you graduate from high school?
January 1933.
And so what did you do after you graduated?
I said my dad took very sick, so family split. We sold everything. My folks came down to Moronga Valley, and I went to Los Angeles and went to work for the Los Angeles streetcar system. Became an electrician, mechanic in that, and then I finally said, because they called me in the office one day, and the boss said, "Skinner, I suggest that you retire from this business and go into something else. He said, this is an English corporation, and you're German primarily." And he says, "We suggest that you look for other employment." Very flat. So I did, and I went to where I ended up working for the Pacific Telephone Company.
What year was this? Was this because of all the Hitler's? I mean, what was happening in Germany, and so that the people didn't like the Germans so much. And by that, was the Germans fighting the British, or about ready to, or
Yes,
at that time?
Because we could tell that something was happening by the people around us, and they have friends for relation overseas,
Yeah.
and we could tell that a war or something similar was in the offing.
And sort of the same thing happened during World War I. The
Exactly
German
the same
people
thing.
were. Yeah.
Right. And a lot of my family was German from Germany, my mother's side, and we just continue, and so split family.
Yeah. So you went to work for, would you say, a telephone company?
Pacific Telephone Company, which later became the Bell System.
Oh. What did you do for them? Work on the lines or something? Or?
No, I became a power man to start off with, and the war came along, and I was going to the Navy then, and I became a radio operator, and
Well, let's go back. Okay, are you married by this time when you went to work for the, or when
I
you
had a
were
very,
working?
very unusual circumstance. My mother and a lady next door in Los Angeles were brides together, and very close. And so finally, my wife's mother, they couldn't find a job, so they went back to Denver, Colorado. And our mothers kept corresponding. And so it was while we were living in Catalina Island that they sent us, her mother sent my mother a photograph of the family. And it was a picture of a nice young lady, high school age, or they were pretty close. And so I wrote back to her and asked her if she'd like to carry on the conversation or correspondence. And in 3 months she answered me, though that went on for many, many years. And finally, she was working for the Mountain States Belt System, became one of their younger supervisors. And in the meantime, I got promoted into the telephone company, and asked her if she'd like to. Well, she actually came out to visit her aunt and uncle, and I met her, and that was Sunday night. And Thursday night, I proposed to her. It was that kind of a love amass.
And what year was that you proposed?
That was 1934.
And what was her name, her maiden name?
Violet Friedholm.
German name.
And her dad was solid Swedish, and her mother was German.
Oh. And where did she live back
Denver,
east?
Colorado.
Oh, Denver, that's right. Yeah.
So she came. The company then sent her out for a week's vacation, and I met her at the train. And during the week, I took her every place around here to Southern California, and we was down here by Long Beach at the Rainbow Pier, and we just gone out to the gambling ship, and she didn't like that water at all, nor the gambling. So we came back to the Rainbow Pier, and right at midnight, we were sitting there listening to the waves, and right around midnight, all of a sudden, I looked at her and held her hand. I said, "Would you like to get married?" Out of the blue sky. And I had no intention of it. She looked at me, and she didn't know, she was thinking. She said, "No, I better go home first and ask my daddy." Well, I said, "Fine, you're responsible, I understand that, being the oldest daughter." So she did. She went back home, and during the period of time when she asked her mother and dad about getting married, and would they get along without her income, and they agreed it did. So then the following Christmas Eve, which was my birthday, I went back and got into her bedroom and said, "Well, did you ask your folks?" She said, "Yes, her daddy said it'd be all right to get married." So then I reached into my pocket and I pulled out a nine diamond ring, and one for her, remember her family, and one from my family, but in the center was the carat, with a half-carat diamond. That was for hers. And she came out the following June, and we got married. So for a total of 9 days of knowing each other, actually, it turned out to be the most perfect, wonderful marriage a man could ever have. Wonderful wife.
Is she still alive?
Yeah. I lost her when she was 87 here in Lightheart in Los Angeles here.
Yeah, so
she was 87 years old. She had a head tumor. And the doctors couldn't save her.
Yeah. So how many years were you married then?
65 years.
65 years, that's great.
And so being only together 9 days, why? Nobody said it would last. Well, we had 65 happy years together.
That's great. And children? Yeah.
So then, all I've done now is the doctors said travel and get the hurt over with. So I've traveled all over the world now. And finally ended up, the doctor said that's enough. I had some real serious strokes and that sort of thing. Travel too much, too fast. Doctor says stop and collect yourself. And I did. And doctor said finally it's time your health is breaking, you've been traveling too much, so go out and see your son out here at Palm Springs. Came out here and kept my house where we were in case it didn't work out. Then I'll give myself 2 months here in Palm Springs. If it doesn't work out, I got a house to come back to.
Yeah. So where was it that you were living in LA the longest? Or
Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Whittier.
Whittier.
Whittier. We were there 50 years in Whittier.
Yeah. And how many children do you have?
I have a son, lives here in Palm Springs. He's 61. My daughter's 63. She never married, but he's married twice, and this time is very, very happily married.
Great. What's his name?
Gary.
Gary. Okay. And your daughter, her name?
Earlene.
And,
he took my name, put a E-N-E on it.
Oh yeah, that's good. Any grandchildren?
I have 3. Let's see, it'd be called. Yeah, 3 grandchildren here, and 4 back in great-grandchildren back in Arkansas.
Oh.
So my great-grandfather and a grandfather and a father.
Oh yeah, yeah. And what did your son do?
He was football, baseball manager, swimming manager here at the high school.
Like Palm Springs High?
Palm Springs High School. He's still here.
Oh, Gary?
Gary.
Oh, I know him.
Oh, you do?
Oh, sure. We used to play tennis together all
That's
the time.
right, he would.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gary been here
Tad
about
Stone
35 years now.
Oh, golly. Doggone it. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I put it together now. He's a
Yeah.
great guy. I really like Gary a lot.
He's quite a sportsman.
Yeah, yeah.
And now he's retired from that
Right.
with Linda, who was a kindergarten teacher. Beautiful marriage.
Yeah.
They now have a son of their own.
Yeah. My wife's first cousin, they're almost like sisters. Her name's Julie McKee, and her husband is John McKee, and they were real good friends with Gary
great.
too. And so
That's interesting. Very interesting.
yeah, I don't know if you knew, you may have seen them around, I'm sure, because they always had parties and
Right.
back and forth and stuff.
In fact, we had a big. Since I've been down there, I've kind of more or less joined the church down there,
Uh-huh.
and they're really active in that
Yeah.
church. It's very.
You probably know
active.
Carlisle Linus. He was the football coach, and
They were both.
and
In fact, he was the big honcho last night at the church.
oh, was he?
They had 30, almost 40 baptisms last night.
Wow, that's
and,
really good.
Linus is one of them, and his son.
Yeah, his son
They
was
both
a
were
good-
both in the baptismal service.
Really? Well, good for
Very
them,
interesting.
yeah. And
Isn't that
Ted,
interesting?
Ted Jones, you probably know
what?
Ted, yeah.
He's been in our family for a long time.
Yeah. Well,
That's great.
That's really good, yeah. What does your daughter do then?
Well, since she's retired from the school teaching, she's a PE teacher also.
I see.
All she does now is travel.
Yeah.
Never married.
Yeah.
And she said I was all tied up for 35 years in a classroom. She says, now I'm traveling. And she has. She just travels all over. In fact, I don't know where she is right now. Maybe she's home again. But she's going over to Hawaii Wednesday. And I don't know whether I'll see her anymore. I'll see you sometime, Dad. But she never married.
Okay. Backing up a little bit now, do you remember what you were doing on December 7th, 1941? Or
Very much so. I was running a power substation for the Edison Company out there, and my substation fed the whole PE railroad system, and also Douglas and Northrop and all those big defense plants. On my power substation, Edison substation, fed power to all those. So when I went down, the whole area went down, which it did. And when supposedly the Japs went over at that time, the whole area went bang, 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 the whole sky lit up. And I was scared to death because of the shrapnel that stuff coming down. Could get in my power lines.
Mm-hmm.
But the man upstairs took care of it. And we had a lot of shrapnel all over my property, but nothing blew.
Yeah.
So then.
But did you hear it on the radio, or did somebody tell you about it?
Well,
when it
yes,
happened?
that was in the morning.
Yeah.
When my wife came out and stayed with me. Wasn't supposed to, but she did. And we were listening to the breakfast, having breakfast on the radio when they come out with December the 7th. And we heard the whole thing. Because then, and about that 1 hour, 2 hour, knock, 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 and yelling for me, the FBI, it came out, and I had a power substation, and very, very critical that I was aware of it. So they brought me out a rifle and a pistol, and said, patrol your fence, because the Japs, that's the Jap gardens out there, and the Japs are all over the place. But they said, we got have a FBI on it, we got the Army out there. And they said, it looks like it's going to be safe, all right. But in the meantime, patrol. And that's what we did then.
Yeah, pretty chaotic couple of weeks there, wasn't it?
Then they transferred me up to Los Angeles, up downtown Los Angeles, which we fed all that whole population up there. And patrol, all day and night, all that doggone power substation I run up there. It was scary. Yeah, I couldn't see around the corner, I couldn't see through the bushes. And they gave us a rifle and pistols and the whole thing there. And he said, patrol. He says, you're it for this whole area up here. It was kind of scary.
Yeah.
And they come along and I was going. Went to the Navy.
Well, yeah, tell me how did you decide to join the Navy, or how did that, and why did you, because had you had children by this time?
Yeah, I had a daughter.
Okay.
She was born in 41.
You probably would not have gotten drafted at your age and having a child, would you?
That's right. I wouldn't have. But when my brother was shot down, and I said, I got to replace him. So the wife and I decided she'd go back to her folks in Denver, and I'd go into the Navy. And because my running the power substations and that sort of thing, they sent me right down to San Diego, and got that out of the way, and put me into a squadron.
What do you remember the squadron you were in?
I finally ended up in Los Alamitos, and I've forgotten, there was 997 or something like that.
What kind of planes did they have in that squadron?
A little bit of everything, very frankly. It was a utility squadron.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, with my radio experience, I got a lot of radio time, and they flew in the bombers, Navy bombers, and I got quite a lot of hours on that. And finally, I got brave enough, and they let me go up there in the front seat on the co-pilot. I got about 300 hours in co-pilot time.
You did.
And flying up and down the coast for patrols and that sort of thing. And then we got out of that and went up to, I was stationed up into Mare Island, and ran a great big primary radios, and I was a radio operator in that time too. That they stuck me in all electronics, and finally the war came along, got out of that, and got my family back together. At that time, I had a son, and he was born in Denver, and I was stationed in. They stuck me in some doggone radio tech school back in Chicago, which I didn't like. So I told them to transfer me. So I went back to Mare Island then, and became a storekeeper. And I was lucky. If you made the top 5% of your class, you got choice of duty. So I got beating my head out. I became one of the top 3 of the whole class. And I got choice of duty, so I stayed right there at Mare Island till the war ended then.
That's San Francisco area?
Yeah. Yeah, I stayed there until after the war.
So you never went overseas, or did you?
Not at that time. When we got called back for the Korean mess,
Oh.
then
You stayed in the reserves when you
yes,
got out?
yeah. And that's when they shipped, I was in Naval Air and staff. And we were called up one night at our house, and I think said, just get down the squadron. I said, we're headed out for Busan, Korea. Oh no, it was 1950 by that time. So we all got down to Los Alamitos, got our planes, and took off. We got out to the other side of Catalina Island. The skipper opened up his sealed package. He said, we're not going to Busan, Korea. We're headed up for Alaska. There was nothing wrong with that. So that's where we ended up in 1950-51, flying patrols all over Alaska up there. And the Japs were down there on Kiska and all that area up there. The Japs were down there. We waved at them, and we waved our wings at us. And we didn't shoot them, they didn't shoot us. And about 2 weeks of that, while we were flying our patrols, and no more Japs. So we called back to the base and told them the Japs are all gone. So they said they got a whole bunch of Army guys that were stationed up there, put them on trucks, took them out then to the end of the island. They were just 27 miles from Russia, and they wanted to be trucked that end of the island. So that's what they did. They dumped a bunch of soldier boys up there. They protected all that area up there. And a little bit of that, and then we came home. War over.
Now, was it were they Japanese or Chinese or?
Japanese.
Okay.
Japanese. And
But we weren't really fighting them at this time in Korea, right? But they were still there.
Well, we didn't shoot them. They didn't shoot us.
Yeah.
But the war was all gone. I mean, it was going on.
Yeah. Right.
We had kind of a mutual agreement. You don't shoot me, and I don't shoot you.
Right. Okay.
And we flew patrols, 200-mile searches in the morning, and again in the night, in the afternoon. And that was the agreement, silently.
Yeah.
That we don't shoot you, and you don't shoot us.
What was the winter like up there?
Well, a flight jacket wasn't enough. So we wore our pea coats. It was cold.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah, those pea coats, thank God for them.
Right.
They were very, very nice to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got about 300 hours squad pilot time on my record.
Yeah.
But then after the war, why?
And so by this time, you said you ended up a lieutenant, I believe. Were you a lieutenant? Were you an officer up there then? Or?
That we never got to be official.
Oh.
Never got to be official. The war came along, and in the meantime, they didn't know where I was or where the papers were.
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, forget it. Just get me out." And then I joined the reserve squadron, and then got my time in rank and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my bachelor's degree and master's degree. And
Where'd you go to school to get that?
Whittier College,
Mm-hmm.
and USC and UCLA. I did a year in each of USC and UCLA, but then that was done after the Korean mess, and they said, well, the telephone company said, well, if you go to school in the daytime, we'll let you work at night until you get your degrees. So that's what I did. I went through and got my bachelor's and my master's degree.
In business?
And,
Business degree?
business management.
I see.
Then later after that, then I got a chance to go into Los Angeles and got a job teaching college at night, industrial management.
Oh.
And I did that for 13 years.
Were you still working for the phone company?
Yes,
then, too?
20 hours a day.
So did you retire from the telephone company? Did you?
In 1987, 35 years.
30,
Yeah.
So tell me some of the places that you've traveled to.
Well, all over the United States, all over half the world.
Where were
Actually,
some of your favorite places that you went?
gee, I wish I could remember that one country. What's that one? I want to say Greenland, but it's like that. But I picked up a tour plane, and it took me seriously. It took us 14 hours of flying down to South America area. There's a country down there. There's a lovely country, and I can't. I've got to get a map and restore my memory.
Yeah.
But I can just see the doggone Rotorua. That's where I finally ended up. I took sick down there, and then they said, Skinner, you're in the hospital. You're in this country's hospital, and they want you out of here. He said, you're a foreigner, and amount of money. And they said that they'll furnish a plane from Rotorua over back up to the main, where the main airplane lands, and especially but you'll have to pay for it out of your own pocket. I said, well, if I have to get out of here, I have to get out of here. So they did. They got me a plane, and flew me up to this, I can't remember what time, Greenland. Anyway, and took me 14 hours to get out of back to the USA. It cost me $2,500. I hadn't figured on, but they went back home. Oh Lord! It all went on after that.
When did you become involved here at the Air Museum?
Well, after the doctor told me to get out of there, where I was, I came back from my travels. He said, Skinner, says your heart and you're up here. He says, get out of here and go to the desert and rest and relax. And I said, well, I got a son in Palm Springs, and he's offered me to help me find a place. So he says, doctor said, that's where you go. So Gary and I come up here, and we went to 4 different places around here. And finally I found this Hallmark, and they offered me a nice great big room, and I could bring all my furniture down, my own stuff. And so then, what was it? It's been about 4 weeks now, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I got the truck and in fact, Gary came down with Ted and all those guys, and they moved me up here. And
so just recently you moved?
Yeah, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks now.
Oh my gosh, okay.
So it's a whole new world, a new life for me. And then Gary, they knew you, and I knew Frank, and he knew one or two, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
And they more or less interviewed me, saw my history with the schools and teaching and engineering and all that kind of stuff. They said, well, I think we can find a place for you. So that's all I've been on a borrowed basis.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy.
Great. Yeah.
Very happy.
Well, it's sure good to have you here. I think we can probably just about wrap it up now. Is there any final thoughts you would like to share?
The people I've been working with have been very, very friendly, very satisfied. I'm satisfied with them, and I hope they're satisfied with me and what I produce. And in fact, they trusted me enough yesterday to have the whole, Mary and I had the whole building to ourselves. So that I feel comfortable in doing what I'm doing. I would like to get, I'm not satisfied, there's something missing yet, but that'll come in time.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But the people here are very, very lovely, very, very friendly, and I'm very, very happy with the people where I am.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you here. I want to thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for coming in and sharing with us.
I certainly appreciate it very much. Very, very, very friendly people, and I'm very happy with them.
Thank you, Earl.